Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure for me to be with you on a Sabbath evening, to enter into this beautiful time that God has designed for us to share with each other and to share with Him. And yes, thank you for that introduction. And it's all still true. I'm still a busy mom who keeps myself probably a little bit too busy. But I still love my horse riding and I love my gardening. And yeah, at the moment, my garden is doing really well. I've planted a whole lot of winter veggies and they're coming on nicely. So, yeah, and it's just wonderful to see how when seasons change, how God is still in control and how there's something special about every season. And he's just such a wonderful creator, God. It's absolutely wonderful. Carl, are you there? Can you hear me? Hello. It's nice to see Carl on the platform tonight. And I hope, Carl, we're going to see you at the camp very soon. So it's just 4 weeks to the junior and teen camps, and we are in full steam organizing and planning and getting the last things ready. So yeah, keep us in prayer as we approach that time. So tonight, I want to share something with you that has never ceases to amaze me. So as you know, I am a medical professional. So I still, even though I don't work anymore, I still love studying the body and the wonderful way God has made us and He's designed for us. And recently, I actually read up again on the day-night cycle, and I was just once again completely blown away by what a great God we serve and how He is so intricate in absolutely everything that He does, and that He has designed laws of nature for our well-being, just as He has also put spiritual laws in place for us for our own well-being. So I'm going to try and share my screen tonight. I've got a few. Okay, I see it. My screen sharing is disabled. Can we perhaps enable it by any chance?
Sure, I've opened it up for you.
Okay, so let me try again. Thank you. Awesome. So I'm going to share a few slides with you. Okay, so I just love this verse from Psalm 74. And it says, "The day is yours, the night also is yours. You have prepared the light and the sun." And isn't it just wonderful that we have a God who has planned it so beautifully from the very, very beginning of creation? And then the question is, why has God put day and night there? And that is not simply because it was just this weird thing that He did. Right at the very first, okay, my screen doesn't, right at the very first day of creation, God said, "And let there be day and let there be night." So it was part of His design from the very, very first day of creation. So some of you may have heard the term circadian rhythm before, but that basically means that our body works in a rhythmic way that is based on darkness and on light. And if we observe the darkness and the light times in the right way, in other words, we sleep at the right time and we sleep enough, and we wake up at the right time and we spend time in the light, not looking at light on screens, but actually spending time in light outside, then our bodies will function properly. Now, how does that work? Well, initially, I was under the impression that your body only perceives light and darkness through your eyes, and then a part in your brain, which is called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is just above, like where the nerves from your eyes come into your brain. There's a little area that kind of is your day-night switch, and it observes light. But now we know that every single organ in your body actually can detect light, and all your peripheral cells in your arms, legs, wherever in your body, is actually able to detect light. So even a person who cannot see, who is blind, their body detects light and darkness through little organelles that's called peripheral oscillators. So that is just an amazing design. It has blown me away that God has built light and dark into every single part of our body, into every cell. When you look at the circadian rhythm here, you will see that this is for an average day. At around 6 o'clock, it starts becoming dark, and that is when our body prepares to go for nighttime. Then here at about 9 o'clock in the evening, let me see where my little thing is. I hope you can follow it with this little arrow here. Around 9 o'clock, that's when our melatonin secretion kicks in. Now, melatonin is a very important, you can almost call it a hormone, but it's actually more a neurotransmitter in our brains, that its function, that our traditional way of understanding it, that its function was to induce sleep. But we know now that it does so many more amazing things, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about melatonin later. And as our melatonin rises at about 9, it is time for us to go to sleep, and it makes us naturally sleepy if we're in good sleep habits. And then when we fall asleep, there are an amazing host of things that happens in our bodies. And I'm going to just mention a few of those for you so that you can be amazed with me. And one of them is that most of our hormonal secretion patterns is dependent on the day-night cycle. For instance, our thyroid hormones peaks at midnight and at midday. So it's related to your day-night cycle. And if you don't sleep at midnight, you're not going to have a proper secretion of your thyroid hormone. And if you didn't sleep well at night, the next day, during midday, your secretion pattern is also going to be disturbed. It also controls the secretion of our estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. So that's the sex hormones. They are also controlled by the circadian rhythms. Especially progesterone in women is secreted in the evenings. So that is why it's so important for women to sleep well. And then it can also affect your fertility if you actually don't sleep properly and your day-night cycle is not good and healthy. Our hunger and satiety hormones, which is ghrelin and leptin, is also related to our day-night rhythms. So if you don't have a good night's rest, you are going to be feeling more hungry the next day. You will be tired and you may not be as active as usual. So actually your body won't need as much food. But because these appetite stimulating and suppressant hormones balance is disturbed, you will feel hungry and you will eat more and you will gain more weight. Therefore, you have to sleep enough to be thin. So that's a nice tip. But this is my excuse why I have to sleep lots. Then there are also some chemicals in our body that's excreted that controls our blood pressure. It's arginine vasotonin, just a very big word. And there's something that's very interesting is something called epithalamin, which is also secreted at night. And that keeps, our DNA is wrapped up like in a helix fashion around a little, for lack of a better word to describe it, I'm going to say a little stick. That little stick that it's wrapped up around is called a telomerase. So it's an enzyme that actually keeps that little stick in good order. Because if it's not in good order, your DNA can start unraveling, and then your risk for cancer can increase. You will age faster when this telomere starts shortening, and it can even affect your fertility and increase the risk for gene dysfunction in your offspring. So therefore, if you don't sleep well, it even affects your DNA integrity, and that is well proven now. But that's not where it ends. It also affects our metabolisms. Our bodies are made to sleep. Your carbohydrate metabolism is influenced. So we are supposed to eat early in the morning and not late at night, because it's in the morning that our insulin sensitivity is at its highest. So it tells us that we should be resting at night. If we eat a lot in the evening meal, then our insulin sensitivity is very low. So even if you produce insulin, it's not going to be able to actually get those glucose that you now have absorbed from your food into the cells. And what's going to happen? You're going to either sit with a really high blood sugar, which you all know is really bad for us, with the insulin levels being high, which is really bad for us. Oh, and it's going to push that glucose into a different pathway, and it's going to be put over into fat. Then also, if your melatonin, also fat metabolism, I almost forgot to say that. So at night, your intestines is more permeable. So that means to fat. So that means if you eat a heavy meal with lots of fat in the evenings, that fat will get absorbed much more readily than during the daytime. And it increases the storage in fat cells at night. So that shows us that God has designed our bodies, even our metabolism, to follow a day-night cycle. And day is there to eat and be active, and night is there for us to rest and for our bodies to be repaired. And that's also why growth hormone is also excreted at nighttime. Now, growth hormone is not only important for children who are growing, but it's also our repair hormone as we get older. And it's then during sleep where injuries are repaired, old cells which has been damaged is either repaired or removed. And so we stay healthy and our bodies are upkeep. So it's almost maintenance time at night when we're supposed to be sleeping. And then, of course, our mental health is influenced by our circadian rhythm, and there's no question about that in the scientific community anymore, because if there's a disruption in your melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, and your serotonin, which is your happy hormone, then you get an increased risk in depression, anxiety, and bipolar disease. So melatonin, which we've mentioned now before, I just want to mention this. Melatonin actually is important because it works with your serotonin, which is your happy hormone in the day, to make your body more sensitive to the serotonin. So if you sleep well, you're going to be happier in the day. And then a very interesting piece of research is that they looked at night shift workers. And they found that night shift workers have a 5 times increase in metabolic syndrome. And that is the combination of obesity with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and type 2 diabetes. So night shift workers have a 5-year shorter life expectancy for every 10 years of shift work that they have done. So that is quite significant. So if you have worked night shift for 10 years, you can know that you're likely going to live 5 years shorter. They also have a much higher risk of cancer. But now here is something that's a bit shocking. If you sleep less than 4 hours per night for 3 nights a week, you have the same risk as that of a shift worker, a night shift worker. So that just shows you how important it is for us to manage our sleep. And I know that many people really struggle with sleep difficulties, but there are many, many things that we can do to get a better night's rest. And I'm not going to delve into that tonight because there's not enough time. But in the questions, if you want to bring that out, I can mention a few things. Now, I want to just show you this. If you go to bed at about, here is when we start producing our serotonin, it starts really peaking here at about 9 o'clock. And here, and here it really rises and it peaks at midnight. And then it starts coming down slowly. If you go to bed after 10 o'clock, you reduce this peak and you will not produce enough melatonin. If you go to bed at midnight, you halve your melatonin production for the next day. So why is melatonin so important? Well, melatonin is a very important antioxidant. It is 30 times more potent than vitamin D. And we all know, vitamin E, and we all know that vitamin E is kind of the standard antioxidant that we always talk about. It also prevents and helps to fight tumors. It delays aging. It enhances our immunity. It decreases your cholesterol, your blood pressure, and the risk of dysrhythmias, that is irregular heartbeats, and it improves our bone density. Isn't that quite amazing? So we can improve our melatonin by going to bed between 9 and 10 at night. So by 10 o'clock, we should really be sleeping. And it's so important that you sleep in complete darkness, that you don't have little lights that shine in your room, because your body will detect that and decrease your melatonin production. Sunlight during the day increases your melatonin production at night. And then foods that are rich in tryptophan, like, for instance, lentils and chia seeds and flax seeds. Actually, all your legumes are really high in tryptophan, and it helps that is a precursor for melatonin. So it gives the building blocks for our body to be able to make melatonin. And then also, if we don't eat a heavy meal in the evenings and don't eat at all at least 3 hours before bedtime, then we also have a better melatonin production. But if we drink caffeine, and if we are very highly stressed, and we use tobacco and alcohol, then we reduce our melatonin production. So this is just a touch of how important it is to sleep. But what about light? And I just want to mention ask you a few questions. Who can actually answer for me? What is darkness? Is darkness the actual thing? Is there anybody who wants to try and answer my question?
Yeah, darkness is a lack of light.
That is right. That is absolutely what it is. So darkness is not an actual thing. It is just the absence of the very important thing, which is light. And isn't it amazing that the first thing God created on the first day was light? And God created that even in the absence of the presence of the sun. So how is it possible that God created light, but there was no sun? Where did the light come from?
Must have come from him. He is the light of the world.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. And in 1 John 1 verse 5, it says, so as God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. And then we also know that lovely verse in Revelation 22 that says, there shall be no night there, talking about heaven. They need no lamp nor light of the sun, for the Lord God gives them light. He is light himself, and they shall reign forever and ever. So light is a form of energy, and light moves in waves. As you can see here, or just an illustration of the different colors of white light. So white light can break up in different visible light colors. And it goes in a wave form, and it can only move in straight lines. It's very interesting how light functions, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. Light is a form of an electromagnetic wave. So where normal waves for instance, a wave that you see on the sea, it goes up and down and up and down. It's only got one kind of plane to it. But when you look at light, it's got different planes. And the one plane, it's got a magnetic field, and in the other plane, it's got an electric field. So it carries so much energy, and it actually has an impact on our bodies when it touches our cells. And that is just an incredible design of how God has put light together. So The sun is obviously the major source of light and energy for our world. And it is so big that 1 million Earths can fit into the sun. So it's a massive, massive structure. And it is also, God has created the universe in such a way that we are right here in the perfect position from the sun, so that we just get enough warmth and enough light. If we were here a little bit closer, there wouldn't have been life on Earth, because it would have been too hot and too much radiation for us. And if we would have been here, there wouldn't have been life on Earth either, because it would have been too cold. So it's just amazing how God has placed our Earth right in the perfect position. So light takes about 8 minutes to reach the Earth from the sun. And as we know, all life on Earth is dependent on the sun. So here is an amazing little thing, and I want to share this with you because it always amazes me, the whole photosynthesis cycle. And I'm going to keep it very, very simple. Everybody can understand it. So all the energy comes from the sun in the form of light. And as that light comes to shines on a plant, it has little cells in that has chlorophyll in, which is a very special chemical. That is what makes our plants green. And that chlorophyll is able to take the energy of the sun and then take carbon dioxide and water and combine it to form glucose. And then a byproduct of that process is oxygen. Now, what do we need to live? As humans and animals, we need the oxygen that these plants produce to breathe, and we need the glucose for our energy. And when we then take this glucose in and we eat this, the process of breaking down that energy again produces water, carbon dioxide, and energy. So it is a process that forms from the sunlight, taking that energy, forms the glucose, and our bodies simply reverse that process again. And that is just another beautiful design that shows us that God has truly made us to live from the plants that he has given us, the fruit and the vegetables and the leafy vegetables and the root vegetables that he has made, because they take the energy from the sun and put it there for us to use. So a little bit more. And just one more thing about light is when we look at creation days, God has made the plants before he has made the sun, which is another proof for us that it is not millions of years between each step. Because if there were millions and millions of years of the plants being in darkness, they would have all have died. So it just once again supports our belief of and the biblical account of a literal 6-day creation. And then there's this beautiful verse in Malachi 4 that says, "But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings." And I know that this refers to Jesus, that has his healing in his wings for us, both spiritually and physically. But it is also true that the sun and the light that the sun gives is really, really important for our health. And I want to share with you a little bit of the science and then the different areas of light and how it impacts our bodies. So these are all the different types of light energy that comes from the sun. And in this spectrum, it's put here from those with the highest energy level right down to the lowest energy level. Now, gamma rays can be very dangerous because they are very, very highly ionizing. So they can damage, they carry a lot of energy and they can actually damage our cells. But because the energy that the wave carry is directly opposite to its wavelength, God has designed it in such a way that this will not damage us, because the longer the wavelength is, the less the penetration is. And therefore, most of the gamma rays that comes from the sun is actually stopped by the atmosphere, and it doesn't reach us and it doesn't harm us. But today they use gamma rays in radiation for cancer. And they have to put it as, I don't know if any of you have ever undergone radiation or seen it, they have to put that, that transmitter right at the place. It is very, very specifically focused, and they have to have it very close because it doesn't penetrate very well. Then those are the X-rays, once again, high energy, potentially damaging to us, but because of their wavelength, the atmosphere filters it out and it doesn't damage us. But once again, we have harnessed it and we use it in medicine now all the time. And then we have the spectrum of ultraviolet, visible light, and infrared light, which I'm going to focus on a little bit more. And those are the ones that we use mostly in our day-to-day life, or we're aware of in our day-to-day life, and what is really beneficial to us. And then at the higher wavelength and lower energy side, we have the microwave rays, which fortunately, because it doesn't create a lot of energy, because it's dispersed in the atmosphere, it doesn't actually harm us. It's different when it's a microwave oven, because then it's very focused and in a very small area, and that is why it is able to actually affect food. And then radio waves, which is really, because it's got such a low energy, is not damaging to us. But then I want to speak to you about this group here. And firstly, I want to focus on what we know, the visible light. And that is obviously what we see, and all the colors that we see all come from the sun. It just depends on what colors the object will either absorb or reflect to the eye. But what I want to just focus on is what goes into our eyes is that it's so important for us to expose our eyes early in the morning to the sun, because the light that goes into our eyes actually immediately and directly stimulates serotonin production, our happy hormone production. And even also dopamine production. And dopamine is also a pleasure hormone, but it's also a very important motivator hormone. It's actually not a hormone, it's a transmitter. So it helps us to have that kind of will and drive to do things in our lives. So within the first hour after awakening, it's really advisable to get 20 minutes of sunlight in your eyes. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to stare into the sun. That is really not advisable. But just being outside and getting light in is more than sufficient. And in countries where they don't have the, they may have a very short daytime, like the very northern countries, they actually advise blue light therapy early in the morning to get a similar effect. So that simulates the sunlight that we here in South Africa are privileged to be able to access just by naturally going out in the morning. So it's a wonderful time of day to go out and get your exercise at the same time. So, and then I want to move to the ultraviolet part of sunlight. Now, that is the part of sunlight that we know that gives us sunburn. But it does another very important thing, and that is it helps our bodies to produce vitamin D. So that energy that comes from the UV rays, that is, you get an A ray and a B ray, it's particularly the UVB ray, work on cholesterol that is stored in our skin or just below our skins. And it actually converts that cholesterol into vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is a hormone-like substance. So it does a lot of things in our body. And after it has been produced, converted from cholesterol to vitamin D, it then goes through a double activation. It goes through our liver to get the first activation, and then to our kidneys to get the second activation. So people who have liver and renal problems have to be particularly aware of the importance of vitamin D in their bodies, because they may not be able to activate vitamin D that their bodies form so well. And in order to make sufficient vitamin D, we have to get about 20 minutes of sunlight to our bodies, with our bodies 50% of our surface area exposed in the middle of the day. And if you have a darker skin, you're going to need more exposure, because the darker your skin is, the less penetration of the UV light is into your skin, and the less vitamin D is produced. So, and also if you use sunscreen, then you will block the production of vitamin D. So many of us are vitamin D deficient. We think that in South Africa, it's vitamin D insufficiency is a rare thing, but it's actually very, very common. Because we are so careful of the sun, we overprotect ourselves often, and we have to be very conscious of getting that balance right, because on the one hand, you really want to avoid sunburn because of its risk of getting cancer later. And also for us ladies, we really don't want that aging effect of sunburn on our skin. But on the other hand, we need to get enough exposure. My husband is an orthopedic surgeon, and he does vitamin D levels on all his patients before they go to theatre for either hip or knee replacements. And about 90% of them are actually vitamin D deficient. It's a really, really high percentage. And when I was still working, and when I started becoming aware of the importance of vitamin D in so many aspects of our well-being, in the well-being of children as well, I've actually seen quite a few kids with vitamin D deficiency as well. So if there's one thing that you want to go and check on yourself, it's very important that there's several checkups that's important, but vitamin D is often overlooked. And it costs about 225 Rand, between 225 and 280 for a vitamin D test at the lab. So it's not a lot to spend to make sure that your vitamin D levels are okay. And I'm going to show you why. We used to think, okay, bone strength, that is what vitamin D is for. We have to have vitamin D, otherwise we're going to have soft bones. But actually so much more than that. So the vitamin D does help with bone strength, because it actually allows the calcium to be built into the bone structure. Without the vitamin D, doesn't matter how much calcium you get in, the calcium won't be captured and put into the bone structure. So nowadays, we actually do not recommend calcium supplements anymore, because most people actually have more than sufficient calcium. We recommend rather that people take vitamin D. Pardon. Then vitamin D is also a gene modulator. So it helps our genes to be staying in the right condition. And also it helps with the switching on and switching off of genes. Now, we all know that now that we have studied the genome so well, that's the presence of a gene in your body I'm talking about certain genes that's going to may potentially cause illness. Just because that gene is present doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get sick. That gene has to be activated in order for you to get sick. And vitamin D is one of those things that can actually modulate that switch, that's on and off switch, so that it doesn't get switched on. And that is one of the ways that it actually decreases the cancer risk significantly. It's also an antioxidant. I'm not going to go into antioxidants too much. Most of us know that it's really important. We've mentioned cancer prevention, and it's especially well proven in breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, and melanoma. Funny enough, melanoma, because people think sunlight, I'm going to get skin cancer. But actually, if you do have adequate vitamin D levels, your risk for melanoma is lower. And then very important for our immune function, and then also for brain function. So the light there is not just there to stimulate into our eyes, don't even only stimulate our serotonin production, so and the later functioning of the melatonin, so we have less mental illness. But actually, vitamin D itself plays a major role in our brain function. I apologize for my dog that's going crazy. I hope it's not disturbing the sound too much. So, so you can see how important vitamin D is. And I just want to show you just a little thing here. This is quite important. So we use the same measure of vitamin D in nanograms per milliliter as the USA does. And most of our labs will say, and most of our doctors follow the lab recommendations, that if your level sits between at around 20, then it's adequate. But most people who really study these things know that we need a higher level of vitamin D to really protect us from disease. And I want to show you just one or two of these because I don't want to spend too much time on this. But here, for instance, if with all cancers combined, if you get your vitamin D levels up to 38, you decrease your incidence of cancer by 77%. That is a lot. Breast cancer, if you get your levels up to about 50, can be decreased by 83%. That is a lot. So, and even diabetes, type 1 diabetes. And type 1 diabetes is the childhood type of diabetes, which can be significantly reduced with enough, the risk can be reduced with vitamin D levels that are sufficient. So nowadays, many of the people who are more into functional medicine will say, forget about the level of 20. That's actually not sufficient. It will be fine for your bones. But if you want to reduce all these other high-risk diseases, I'm sorry, you need to try and aim for your levels more in the area of around 50. So I want to encourage all of you to have your vitamin D levels checked. So I want to move on to the other benefits of UV light is wound healing. We all know that that if you expose a wound to sunlight, it heals quicker. And then here, since we've just come out of the COVID pandemic, it kills bacteria, viruses, yeast, and some fungi. So get sun exposure. If there's a wound somewhere, expose it to the sun. Okay, I want to move on just to the infrared spectrum. Now, infrared is the part of the sunlight that actually causes the warmth of the sun. So if we are outside and you feel that nice warm feeling, that is the infrared part of the sun that warms you up. But what is very interesting about infrared is that because it has a long wavelength, it actually penetrates deeply into your body. And that is really, really good for us. So, so infrared light has actually been proven to be anti-inflammatory. And I just want to clarify here that I talk about the near infrared. So that is the spectrum just after your visible light. The saunas that we often see with the red lights, and they will talk about the infrared saunas that are so good for you, they actually unfortunately use far infrared, and that does not have the same effect on our bodies as the near infrared. So the near infrared can penetrate right through your clothes, so you don't even have to have your skin exposed. You can be even in a winter's day, have a jersey on or a jacket on, but if you feel that warmth of the sun, you know that you're getting infrared. And it can even penetrate our skulls. It can go through bone. It is really amazing. So it's anti-inflammatory, and it can work on our mitochondria. Now, mitochondria are those little powerhouses. It's actually our krachtstasies in Afrikaans. It's the Eskom of our bodies, really. It makes the energy. It takes the glucose and converts it into energy in our bodies. And this repair of your mitochondria or poor function of your mitochondria is associated with cancer. It's associated with aging. But if it's exposed to infrared, it actually helps the repair and replication of the mitochondria so that they live longer. It can convert the energy better. And it also reduces the oxidative stress. So know it, we're talking about antioxidants by the infrared light that shines on your mitochondria. And because of that, it also gives faster healing in our bodies if we have an injury or an illness. And that's a little picture of mitochondria. That's what they look like. And that's where the infrared light actually works directly on those tiny little organelles that's within our cells. And most of our cells have multiple mitochondria that lives in them. So I've gone through that. I don't know. Oh, yes. Last one thing. It has also got pain reduction as an important aspect of infrared light. So, as you have seen, God's design of light and darkness is absolutely amazing. It just blows my mind that God has thought it through so well. And if we are respectful of this design that God has put in place, then without actually having to make too much effort, we get so many health benefits from it. And it's more than that as well. God has given us the word. And in Psalms 119, he tells us that his word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. So spiritually as well, if we expose ourselves to the light, we will also be well spiritually. And I want to end this off by this beautiful 2 verses from Psalms 139. It says, if I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, even the night shall be light around me. Yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shines as the day, and the darkness and the light are both alike to thee. So we have to know that even when we're in darkness, whether it's spiritually or we feel uneasy at night, darkness does not affect the Lord. For him, the night is as bright as the noonday sun, and we can always rely on him to keep us walking in the light. So I hope that this was a meaningful presentation to you and that you have enjoyed our time together. I want to now just stop our sharing that I can see you. Would you like me to close with prayer, or is somebody else going to close with prayer?
Would you mind to close in prayer, please?
I will do that. Let's close our eyes. Our Heavenly Father, we just want to honor your name and bring you glory because you are truly amazing. Thank you that you have made our world in such a way that every aspect of that is for our benefit. And help us, Lord, to honor your creative design in all the aspects of our lives. And help us also to follow your spiritual laws, dear Lord, so that we will not only be physically, but also spiritually healthy. Thank you for this Sabbath day. We praise your name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Adele, for a very educational, wonderful, and needed message. It's really beautiful. We're going to go over to our questions just now. We just wanted to say hello to all the YouTubers, and we hope that you've gained some insights in the light of the Lord, and also getting some education about how important light is as well. I hope that you'll come and join us soon on the platform itself. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to you all. Have a blessed weekend, and please take care of yourself and get some sunlight as we